Hello and good morning. You're watching World News live from Warsaw. My name is Sasha Farbach. Now, first we begin with the United States and Hungary. Now, Budapest has been granted a one-year exemption from U.S. sanctions on Russian oil and gas. The White House has announced after a friendly meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban. In a bid to end the war in Ukraine, Donald Trump slapped sanctions on the Russian oil giants Lukoil and Rosneft last month and vowed to extend restrictions to countries that use their products. Now, Hungary's prime minister has pledged his country's case in the White House, describing the potential implications of a cutoff for the Hungarian people and its economy. Now, Trump agreed to Hungary's request, stating that the situation is very different for Orban's landlocked country, as it does not have access to ports for energy supplies. Now, Hungary has been heavily dependent upon Russian energy supplies, with 74% of its gas and 86% of its oil imported from Russia, according to figures by the International Monetary Fund. And alongside the sanction exemption, Hungary also signed a $600 million deal with the U.S. to purchase American liquefied natural gas. As Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban and U.S. President Donald Trump addressed the press at the White House about the new chapter of their country's bilateral relations, the two leaders also touched on the war in Ukraine. In response to Trump's question, Orban suggested that only a miracle could bring the war to an end.
We're talking, but we'll report on that later. Meetings with Putin. We were talking about that with Viktor. He understands Putin and knows him very well. And I feel that, I'm going to let you say what you think, but I think that Viktor feels we're going to get that war ended in the not too distant future. Viktor, do you want to talk about that?
Well, I'm strongly convinced. So the question is whether we Westerners are unified or not. The problem is that the president has huge peace efforts, which are just splendid and very positive for the European continent and all the peoples of Europe. But at the same time, we are not unified because Brussels and the Europeans have a different approach to the war. So the only pro-peace government is the United States government and the small Hungary in Europe anyway. All the other governments prefer to continue the war because many of them think that Ukraine can win on the front line, which is a misunderstanding of the situation. So it's a complicated issue. We will discuss it. It requests not just 2 minutes to respond to your question, but rather than our lecture. Sorry, not to continue more.
So you would say that Ukraine cannot win that war?
You know, miracle can happen.
Yeah, that's right.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy stated on Friday that he could not endorse fruitless meetings about Ukraine without Ukraine. The comment was made in reference to recent reports about Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban's efforts to host President Trump and President Putin for peace talks.
Orban wants to bring Trump to Hungary for a meeting with Putin. You know our stance on this. I won't repeat myself. Should there be a meeting that results in a ceasefire and the end of the war, wherever it may be, Ukraine will support it. I have always said as much. However, if meetings are only for Mr. Orban's political gain and produce no results, we cannot support that. Undoubtedly, meetings about us without us are fruitless, but again, we agree that any format is acceptable if it brings results.
Russia launched a large-scale attack on Ukraine overnight with drones hitting a residential building and energy sites in Dnipro and causing casualties and blackouts. Explosions were reported in multiple regions, including Dnipro, Kharkiv and Sumy, and in the capital, Kyiv. This was another sleepless night for many Ukrainians. The attack on a residential building in Dnipro killed one person and wounded 11 others, including 2 children. An overnight Russian airstrike hit the suburbs of Kharkiv, leaving 8 people injured and destroying a gas station. According to local media, explosions were heard in Kyiv just before 4:30 a.m. There had been no information provided yet on the scale of the fires or any damage or casualties in the capital. The Ukrainian Ministry of Energy stated that the massive combined missile and drone attack targeted the country's energy infrastructure, resulting in emergency power outages in several regions. Russia's Lukoil will have to halt operations in Moldova on November 21st, following U.S. sanctions imposed last month. Now, the announcement was made by the country's defense minister, Dorin Jungietu, on Friday. The Russian company, which owns a network of gas stations and an airport fuel storage facility, will no longer be able to supply gasoline, diesel, or kerosene. Moldova is aligning itself with U.S. sanctions, but has requested a temporary exemption to avoid major disruptions for its citizens, according to the defense minister. The official also said that Moldova has rejected Lukoil's proposal to divest its assets and sell its airport infrastructure to another company. In January, Poland will become the only coal producer in the EU. That's because the Czech Republic is closing its last remaining coal mine. Now, experts point out that Prague's decision will only result in the country buying fossil fuel elsewhere, and most likely from its northern neighbor. Due to its proximity to the border, the mine employs many Polish workers who could now lose their jobs.
What am I supposed to say? The government, the Czech authorities made this decision. What can we do? I've been working here since 2001. We're supposedly working until the end of the year, maybe a bit longer, March next year. Severance? No, we're an outside firm. When they say we're done, we say bye and we leave. It's tough, you know. We don't know what the future will look like. We don't know if we'll go to Poland to work or stay here, or if it will all be liquidated. I think they're shooting themselves in the foot, just like in Slovakia. It's their last mine. There's nothing left in the country. Where are they going to buy coal now? Surely it's needed. They were closing this place down 5 or 6 years ago. They were bailed out. They got quiet and kept operating. I don't know. It's very strange.
Polish parliament has stripped former Justice Minister Zbigniew Ziobro of his legal immunity. Lawmakers voted in favor of indicting him on account of 26 criminal charges. The Polish parliament has also approved a request from prosecutors to place the former Justice Minister in pre-trial detention.
Zbigniew Ziobro, Poland's powerful Minister of Justice in the previous Law and Justice Party's government, who once vowed that no one was above the law, now faces 26 criminal charges of his own, including leading an organized criminal group, a count that carries a maximum sentence of up to 25 years in prison. Prosecutors accuse him of embezzling around 150 million zloty from the Justice Fund, which was established to help victims of crime.
Minister Ziobro will be brought before the authorities just as any other citizen would be. There will be no exceptions or sacred cows. Anyone who breaks the law, any government minister who breaks the law, must face justice. We will take his evasive tricks for what they appear to be. We will not be deceived.
Poland's parliament voted on Friday on whether to lift Zbigniew Ziobro's parliamentary immunity in a series of 26 votes, one for each of his criminal charges. All 26 voting rounds were concluded in favor of lifting his immunity. In accordance with the recommendation of the Rules and Deputies Affairs Committee, the Parliament also voted in favor of putting Ziobro in pre-trial detention.
There is no democracy without the ability to hold those in power accountable when it is seen, like through a focused lens, just how much evil they have done.
The misuse of money extended beyond grants and equipment for NGOs, conservative media outlets, and parish charities in districts that were key to the then-ruling Law and Justice Party. In 2017, around 5.7 million euros from the Justice Fund were secretly diverted to buy the Pegasus spyware system for Poland's Central Anti-Corruption Bureau, which was later used to monitor the activities of, among others, the Polish opposition. Both the Internal Security Agency and the National Police warned that such a purchase could breach Polish law, but Ziobro and his deputies approved it anyway. According to former Minister of Justice Adam Bodnar, as many as 578 individuals may have been monitored. Experts say Zbigniew Ziobro, who is currently outside of Poland, could appeal to Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban for political asylum, just like his former deputy.
being in Budapest is highly significant because just under a year ago, his deputy, the junior minister in the Justice Ministry, a man called Marcin Romanowski, had similar charges levelled against him, very, very similar charges connected to the same case of participating in an organised crime group, not leading it and running it, but participating in very serious charges.
Ziobro rejects all the charges, saying they're Prime Minister Donald Tusk's revenge and claims the persecution is politically motivated. Critics say Ziobro ran a state within a state, using the victims' funds as its hub to finance loyalty and consolidate power.
At a German army summit on Friday, Defense Minister Boris Pistorius linked the recent drone sightings over Belgian airspace to Europe's increased efforts to release the frozen Russian assets as a means to provide Ukraine with additional financial support.
It's a measure designed to create uncertainty and fear in Belgium. Don't you dare touch the assets. There is no other way to interpret it. These rapid response forces are drone defense forces that can intercept and repel drones in the electromagnetic spectrum, influence them and even capture them and combat them kinetically. That is precisely what he requested, and the forces are now in action.
The European Commission is looking to place further limits on Russian travel, with stricter rules set to eliminate the so-called multiple entry visas for Russian nationals. This is due to possible security risks, as well as the need to put pressure on Russian society as the invasion in Ukraine approaches the 4-year mark.
The Commission has adopted stricter rules on visas for Russian nationals. This is in view of the increased security risks stemming from Russia's unprovoked and unjustified war of aggression against Ukraine, including the weaponization of migration, acts of sabotage and the potential misuse of visas. From now on, Russian nationals will no longer receive multiple entry visas. This means Russian nationals will have to apply for a new visa each time they plan to travel to the EU, allowing for a close and frequent scrutiny of the applicants to mitigate any potential security risks.
The director of Slovenia's Food Safety, Veterinary and Plant Protection Administration, Vida Znoj, has resigned after a major personal data leak that affected almost 900,000 residents, according to the N1 website. The government agency announced on Thursday that it had received a notification last week regarding unauthorized access to personal data through a website listing registered plant protection products. According to the Information Commissioner, there is no evidence of data misuse. That's all for this World News Update, but join us again at the top of the hour. There's more right here on TVP World, so don't go away.